we're not sure what will happen next year if we're going to be asked to do something like this again. This is our second effort doing a class, and it's funny. Linda was asking us earlier, what were you worried about before this class? And there's a lot. We're never really sure what's going to be useful, and we put these things together, and we're not sure that they're useful even when it's going on. We never really have such a good sense of things. So we just thought we'd get your feedback, and this is not, we're not asking you to give us just positive stuff. This is one of those, please tell us what we can do to improve things and what will work if we were going to do classes in the future. So just to kind of frame it, what would you say we should definitely do again? Like thinking of the structure, we had the nuts and bolts, we had the big picture, we had the measurables. We did the chat among ourselves, the conversation piece. So what of those would you say was, the stuff we should keep? What didn't work so well? If you're really clever and you have a better solution, what would that be? What can we change? So just kind of like that, like give us some feedback, and we're looking to improve. So that's what we're shooting for here.
The one comment I would make has little to do with what you were saying. Early on, even though I really value the stories that you share, in one of the first couple sessions, maybe the one I watched online, I'm not sure, I was expecting less teaching and more interaction within the group.
Mm-hmm.
And I value the stories that you share. They're a part of the teaching, but I had seen it as an opportunity for more interchange, and at least in those first one or two, I felt there was a lot of teaching and less dialogue than I expected.
That's good.
I think that's right. I felt that too.
I love the teaching, and I wish there was more teaching today. I was like, what else can they tell me? Because it was so good. And I'm like, oh, we're going to talk about. But no, I like discussion too. I mean, yeah, kind of short.
I really liked the starting with the shamatha, and then I liked when we ended with one of the contemplations of the four immeasurables. I kind of like it. Kind of like little bookends. Yeah, that kind of.
I lean more towards her direction. I also enjoy the teachings a lot. I actually expected a shorter or more contained group discussion, and then maybe I don't know, maybe questions or answers even during the teachings. I don't know. But the only thing that I would like to deepen is maybe more of a set of examples of prayers. It would be good. There are a lot of prayers, and unless you're done, or you're able, you have the time to be in a lot of different classes or retreats or something, it would be useful to have an idea of starting a practice, what would be a good set of prayers.
That's great. And we actually have an answer for that. Well, because there are the daily prayer books that were made for the Mahamudra program, and that particular set of prayers was selected by Bokar Rinpoche, so it includes refuge and the 7-branch prayer and the 4 immeasurables and the 4 thoughts that turn the mind, and it's a really wonderful set that he curated, and those pages, those prayers are available in the bookstore. Those are excellent.
Yeah, that was good.
I liked the sort of homework of, keeping things in mind and things to contemplate or observe week to week, and then, kind of the opportunity to discuss that. I agree, it kind of helped tie, like, bookend sort of each session together with each one, and it was nice to kind of get to have that in mind in between our classes. Kind of kept the class fresh in mind each week. I liked that a lot, and then kind of you guys' sort of debriefing with us about it at the beginning of each new session.
It might be nice to have like the homework for each week just on one piece of paper, and you only needed to get the piece of paper once, but then, you would remember what they were when you went home.
That's good,
Along the lines of remembering, because especially the first class, I also like a lot of the information part of it, and I like the discussion equally, but I think when I was first getting that first class, it was interesting, like even coming back from the break, I think there's an opportunity to maybe just like do like a 2-sentence recap of like, okay, we talked about this, and now we're going into this, that those kind of little tricks of like speech help things stick in my mind, hearing it like in the names of things a few times, it's like, oh yeah, that the first immeasurable compassion and enjoy, it's like, and those, it almost creates like a bell where it just rings a few more times in my own head later.
Yeah, that's a reminder. I'm a very visual person, so having handouts, like maybe of the 4 immeasurables, or when you're talking about them, just to have it so I can look at the words when you're talking about it. That would be helpful for my kind of learning.
Yeah, one side could be the syllabus of like just a brief like outline, like with just major words, and and then the other side could be the homework and like one sheet done. Save some trees, still remember what we're doing.
We can do that.
Yeah, that's one of those pieces that I think the mind training study group does so nicely. Tim and Zopa will collect up different translations of the aphorism that is coming up in the next class, and maybe some commentary and things. He sends that material out ahead of time, so then you've got the written version of it that you can look at it ahead of time, or you can bring it with you if you want to.
I really appreciate how you both pivoted back and forth and brought different perspectives, but were very thoughtful in the pacing of the perspectives, and then also how often you would just share places where you all were questioning or troubling or stumbling. That was so, like, thinking about practice, it was just so helpful to not always have the answers, but to have, here's how I wrestle, and that opened that up. I think that helped free up some of us to be able to maybe me to contact some places where I wrestle more and be able to see that and look at that more. And there was the time you guys talked about the sympathetic joy too, with the what was coming at the beginning of that day, like they dovetailed so beautifully in a way afterwards, like
Oh, that was intentional.
I thought, I didn't expect to get the 4 immeasurables here, and I initially was like, oh, here we go again, But then I was like, oh, so that was really great to bring those in as well as keep it stitched to the practice. So I appreciate that. I don't know what to say about discussion and the teaching. I really like both. If somehow you can keep both. Because I think I learn from doing and practicing and not just from taking in. I think at some point I could just get full and I need to do something. So yeah, so I feel like it was a good balance.
Just following what she said, I really found helpful how you talked about like your first 10 years of practice, and like in that first and second class I remember in particular, and like sort of the challenges of being a Westerner and integrating this Tibetan tradition, and just the things that you struggled with and learned in that process over those 10 years. All those comments were really helpful. Yeah. Just what you said.
I actually wanted to thank you for how you described or you taught about the four immeasurables, because I have read so far a lot about it. Well, and actually we talked about it in two retreats. But your definitions really made me understand what I didn't understand before. So I'm very appreciative of that.
It's great.
We did. we
I'll say
repeated
that.
Yeah.
I also, I mean, because so many points have been already touched, but even just the title, the care and feeding of your practice, I really appreciated that because, you know, I've been thinking about, like the first week, I just noticed the care and feeding of your practice is the care and feeding, you know, of yourself and of each other. And I think that really just has like infused our time, whether when we're together and when we're not together. We're caring and feeding for ourselves and each other. So that's really, yeah.
Yeah, it was really our hope that these sessions would provide a little energy that would carry through in the week between each class, so that people would actually feel supported to engage their practice and maybe try some different things. And I still can't quite tell if we were successful with that, if it did provide some energy or life in between.
I think it did. It did for me.
I'm doing things differently now than I would have if you hadn't done that.
Even just minimizing the amount of time that I would otherwise, you know, waste on Tuesday nights alone. I mean, not that I was totally wasting my time, but I feel like, you know, it shrinks up those opportunities I would have otherwise to wander off, you know, and I find myself, even if the other nights I struggle, maybe not spending like an hour or two, I still feel that shrinking up of those opportunities where, you know, I could sit on the couch instead of turn to the altar. And it's definitely, you know, a conversation with the people around me and, you know, my loved ones. Yeah, it's nice. And, you know, opportunities like I got to actually meet another Garchen Rinpoche this week, and I wonder too if I hadn't been like steeping my mind in Dharma, if that opportunity would have come and gone without me like really recognizing the importance of even being in a presence of, you know, his name is Garchen Rinpoche, and he just happened to be visiting in Seattle, where one of my girlfriend's family members goes to temple. And yeah, just like listening to him. He had a translator, you know, so I got to listen to him talking and listen to what he said. And yeah, it all kind of just like, you know, these events, it seems like a coincidence, but it also seems like, you know, these talks prepared me to listen to another, view of the same thing.
Yeah, right on. I don't think the goal is just did our daily practice change? I think for me, like just even hearing tonight the encouragement about volunteering and how that can affect your practice, and then going on retreat, like I just wasn't connecting those things, and like now I'm like really thinking about that, and I had never thought to think about it like that, and so if I had just gotten that, the 5 weeks I feel like would have been worth it, because that totally can carry further in a way. So it's hard to know what you get. Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely think it was valuable, and it's nice. It's an interesting and kind of rare experience. I've over the years taken a number of classes with our teachers, and it's cool. You guys' perspective, it's just different. It's valuable. It's nice. It reminds me of like, when you're in school and you might have an opportunity to sit down when you're an underclassman, or and to talk to the upperclassmen about something. I mean, it's also cool to go hear the teacher or the professor talk, and they're experts and stuff. But there's a different, like you guys, have been at it long enough. You've gone on enough retreats and done all your practices. You guys can refer to doing the mazillion prostrations and stuff that I've never done. So it's cool to like kind of hear you guys share that with us. It's a special. Totally agree with what you were saying. It's a special view that I really get to appreciate as much as I love having our experts, our teachers. I looked forward to Tuesday each week, and it was a nice time to kind of get to check in. And I agree that just the notion that like we're just going to sit and work on the care and feeding of our practice, just that alone was like, oh yeah, that's good. And it is just different than getting to each Sunday is awesome, but it's a different extra thing. That's good.
I totally agree with that. I think that knowing that you're not alone having these struggles, and that a lot of the things can be recognized in the same way for others, and that there are ways for people who have more knowledge than you to help you resolve this, and have a place where that is the topic. It was very valuable.
Yeah, so it really shouldn't be 5 weeks. It should just be ongoing. You're laughing, but
I already asked him.
Yeah, our thing is really, we were talking about this maybe over the weekend, like our thing is we're lay practitioners. We are lay practitioners, and we all are lay practitioners. And that's a different thing. And it presents its own unique set of challenges. And if there's anything at all we can do, there are other people to get advice from about the specifics of your practice. But if there's any way that we can encourage people to let the Dharma be the context for their lay life, I feel like that's maybe the thing we have to offer.
And in our time at KCC, we've had the opportunity to interact with people like Bill and Dora, and even Michael, as well as people on the board in these other contexts. And I think we've actually seen them talk the way that we've talked, like the difficulty they have with their own practice with other things. And we knew how valuable that was. It really helped kind of demystify everything. That was one of the most valuable things for us. So we think that I'd like to express our thanks. We didn't invent this idea. It came from seeing other folks do that, having a chance to see other people do that stuff.
Yeah. That's right.
Yeah, and I just, listening to everybody talk, it's like everybody's so relaxed about this. It's like, this is a daily practice. It's just, you know, what we do, whereas sometimes it's tendency for me sometimes to get too serious about it, you know, like teachings come down and then I, you know, kind of tighten up or something. And this has just been a nice experience of, this is, you know, what we do and we're talking about it, and so it's informal, and I like the informality of it. Yeah.
Yeah, and I have respect for you guys like doing it, you know, and also in knowing like, you know, once in a while you've had to say, that might be a question we've got to ask, you know, the expert teachers. And I think I've run across a couple times over the years reading the Dharma, there's the teaching that, you know, because somebody might say, oh gosh, shouldn't I, you know, never teach anything until I'm an expert. And there's the teaching that, you know, there's tremendous, and I think Michael's even mentioned it, like there's great merit in just having the courage and the care to teach even when you're just beginning teaching, and that is actually, that outweighs any, you know, lack of total expertise, like that just the merit of just engaging and teaching even early on is really, really worthy. And I appreciate you guys doing it.
Well, I think they have expert teaching. I think maybe it's just courageous and good to know when you don't know something. Yeah, you say, you know, you could be expert teacher and still do that. Hey, I don't know that. And that's cool. So I think you guys are great teachers.
Yeah, no, I think you've got a lot of expertise. I just need if you don't have all of the answers necessarily, like you've had to say sometimes. I appreciate that.
Well,
You're still doing it.
I feel like there were times when I answered questions I shouldn't have answered, so if we could roll the tape, I probably can say less, but there you go. Especially after hearing Michael speak on Sunday, I was reminded that
Well, but everything
20 years long, I don't
helps.
know what I'm talking about.
Everything helps, you know, kind of further your understanding of your thoughts.
So here's a question. In your practice, thinking about next year, without, I won't put you on the spot and say what kind of class would you teach, but in terms of what's valuable as far as these kinds of classes, are you looking for practice-based stuff? Because last year we did a thing on the ethics, which had a big practice component, the 4 lay vows. I sort of ignore one.
Just like before.
2.5. And that wasn't quite as applied as this class. And there are, you know, there's specific practices that you can think about, or I don't know, is there, what's helpful and what would you hope to see on the calendar next year? If you want to help. That was really terrible. That was the baddest setup as it could be.
Yeah, you don't have to manufacture an opinion if you don't already have one. But yeah, last year we led a session on the 5 lay vows, and that really was oriented toward maybe introducing people to those and how to work with those as carrying practices in day-to-day life. And then this was really much more nuts and bolts about kind of getting our practice going, keeping it alive. So we wonder if we were to be asked next year to lead something, they'll say, "What do you want to do the class on?" So what would be helpful to you? What type of class or what topic would you really like to see covered, if you have any ideas? Peter.
Well, my practice is shamatha, which I don't think I necessarily do very well. Alan Gladstone said to me the other day, or recently, there are scores of different ways to do shamatha. Given my comments earlier this evening, I'd certainly be interested in a class that laid out other ways to practice that don't involve visioning things or praying to St. Francis to take away all my sins.
I'm very interested in the carrying practices. I want to not just be on the cushion. And then, like I said a little bit before, I learn by doing. So having activity and, practice either between the sessions or, is, I don't just want to feed this part. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a good topic, and it makes me think of, I've been thinking a lot about Dharma and work, not necessarily career and career paths, but just integrating Dharma in your daily work, because there really kind of is a disjunct in some ways. Like I can think, okay, I've had bodhicitta today while I work, but there's a lot of details that I seem to slip into other ways of thinking, and I can, something like that, maybe how to apply.
I think if we're at a new center, it might be nice to just do something that was like strictly like, how to start your practice. Like for like, just like from the total like never done this before, and then try and get as many people like from wherever to come.
When we put this class on the calendar, we thought we might be in the new center, and that a group of people might have just arrived at the new center because it was bigger and that this would be appropriate for them. But the timing didn't really work out. And because we got a group of people who've been practicing for longer, I think we went a little different direction with the content than we would have if it had been all people like, I've been here for a month.
You know what I would totally love? I know you guys would do a good job with it, but if somebody ever did, I would just absolutely always wanted this is just like a intro to Tibetan Buddhism 101, like kind of academic class. Like, and I've, studied it over the years myself to try to figure these things out, but what are the four schools of Tibetan Buddhism and how are they different? How are they defined? What does this mean for each of them to be the head of each one? What's the difference between the Karmapa and the Dalai Lama? If there's anything, what is a Tulku? What is a Rinpoche? How do these things, how do they reincarnate, and how does Tibetan Buddhism work, and what are the deities, and I'm forgetting the names of them.
What's
but
a Yidam? What's a
yeah,
protector?
exactly, the cool spiritual
What do they do?
characters.
Oh, can you tell me that? Because I still don't know.
Yeah, because often these prayers were like, may the so-and-sos, dance and sing for us. And I'm like thinking, I'd love to know what all these things are, and what, like when we do prostrations and gesticulations, like what each thing we're doing and what is a aspiration, what is a dedication, what's going on the altar, or the shrine. Like, I just kind of like all of this, just kind of like that basic stuff that, I felt like, when I first started coming here, I was like, man, there's all these cool trappings, and I have very little idea. But, I think Richard Gere is into that Dalai Lama guy. That's all I know. And so, like, just like a real academic, and where we can ask questions, too. Like,
Right.
What is a Tulku, and is everybody a Rinpoche? And, what, like, just kind of sorting all that out would be, like, so valuable. And I read it, but I'm old, and it's easier to have it sink into my brain when it's in a classroom, when it's like discussion, people are asking questions. That just way more sinks into my brain. I would love that. And I think I agree, it would be a good thing, like once we get in the new center, if somebody just says, yeah, I hear Buddhism is cool, and then they come in here, like to be able to take that class and like, oh, okay, that's that guy. oh, they brought Buddhism to the West in the 60s, and oh wow, and that's how this all fits together. And did that guy know the Dalai Lama, and he knew Lama Michael, and just kind of fitting all that stuff together would be really, I would really appreciate that. I know you guys know a lot of that stuff.
We know some of that.
Yeah,
stuff.
we know some of that stuff, and you'd be surprised how much we don't know. But still, we'll like, hey Dora.
Yeah, that would be a great.
And all those
Dora
terms.
class.
It would be a good
Because
Dora
Bill's
class.
really into the philosophical stuff.
Mhm.
Actually, they're both very precise thinkers, and then Dora is so fantastic on understanding all of the cultural protocols and
Wow.
who's what and how it all fits together. They
Wow.
have an enormous depth of knowledge.
Yeah, like a glossary of terms, you know, Mahamudra, and Bodhicitta, and Bodhisattva, and like kind of, because, you know, when you start out, you start hearing all these terms, and we're like praying for them and hoping to have them, and I'm thinking, now what is that again? Like, you know, it just would be really, you know, it would be really useful. Because I think if you grow up in it, in Asia or something, you probably, you know, learn those things as a very young child. Or for so many of us, you know, we're having to learn them as adults. And
That's what Wikipedia is for.
I know, and I do it constantly, and then I forget, and I write them out myself, and I still like try to piece it together. And I know I work on it all the time, trying to understand it. But I would appreciate, yeah, just like a 5-week course of stuff, you know, like that would be so cool.
I know what you mean. Wikipedia is great, but it's not integrationist. You need a class will say, here's the context for all this stuff. So I know I would like to take that class. It sounds like I could do like the sub 100 level version of that class, but there's a lot we don't know.
There's a lot we don't know. And, I mean, we were book Buddhists for a long time, and so we know a fair bit about kind of history and philosophy, but those courses are never taught from the perspective of a practitioner, somebody who's actually engaged with the religion. I mean, I guess at Maitripa they are, but that's a kind of revolutionary experiment that they're running over there to try to provide an academic degree within a practitioner's context. So yeah, some of the stuff that you read in a book that is just presented in an academic form doesn't tell you how it relates when you're actually on the path. It's really different. It's really different,
Yeah.
those two contexts.
Well, everybody enters through a different door,
Yeah.
too, right? So.
And this can be one of those big obstacles. It's just too many Rinpoches, and I don't know my Bodhi this from my Bodhi that.
And that thing in the corner is weird.
Yeah.
In a
And
wonderful
we don't know
way.
what it is.
And are we
In
praying
a
to
wonderful
these,
way.
and do they exist? And
That's right.
yeah.
Yeah, some of the basic iconography, like what are these cool things? Like why do they do this stuff? What is a, you know, a mala, a tonka?
You'd think there'd even be at least little stickers in your things that would like say what it was, you know? Like, I don't know. It seems like common courtesy in museums.
And then it's like when in my own research, there's like traditional presentation, and there's this whole slew of like these more Western slants, and I'm like, oh, there's one I didn't catch. Oh, there's another one. Like teachers sort of saying it a different way, like, and especially this new this new way, and so that part always drives me batty.
Yeah, there's the party line, and then there's the interpreted version.
Yeah.
It's good to know both, right? Like you
Yeah,
want to know
you'll
what the
find,
party
like,
line is, and then you want to know
jewels.
what does this mean.
How does this relate? Yeah, because we're always, Michael talked about this on Sunday morning too, that we're still in the middle of the process of Tibetan tradition coming and being planted in the United States. And there's a careful and terrifying sorting process going on of trying to make sure that the essence of the Dharma actually gets rooted here without all of the cultural overlay becoming so difficult that we can't relate to that root. And who's supposed to know, like, what bits and pieces that look cultural are actually essential. Like that thing, that was the key to enlightenment. Enlightenment of one life if you hadn't abandoned that thing.
Yeah.
It's like, we're halfway through that. Like Buddhism, the outward shape of Buddhism shifts a little. The form shifts a little in every country that it's gone into. So a lot of what is happening at KCC is trying to know the party line and then trying to figure out how to talk about it in a way that it actually makes sense to people who are coming out of this cultural context, so that you can really integrate the things that are critical about it. It's a strange translation process we're caught up in.
Yeah, that'd be an interesting class, actually, like Buddhism coming to the West.
And that's what Lama Drupkyu is going to be talking about, which I think would be really interesting. Yeah.
All right, 9:03. And does anybody have anything they're burning to say before we dedicate the merit for this class?
I have one request.
Yeah.
And it's like, kind of, maybe not so exciting. The 4 thoughts that turn the mind, I would love a class on that. Just kind of get a little bit more in depth and some contemplation, get some juice into that.
Yeah, on long retreat, they do those practices and they do them for days at a time on a single one of those. Like, that's the thing they do all day long. So clearly there's unplumbed depth there that I certainly have not
Plumbed.
plumbed. For me, there is unplumbed depth there.
Yeah, most of us.
Yeah.
Thank you.
The bell.
All right, well, this time when we dedicate the merit, we have the entire merit of the class, all that we've done here on in and outside the class. So let's remember our merit as we dedicate it.
By this virtue may I quickly realize Mahamudra and establish all beings without exception in this state. We are by far the biggest beneficiaries of this.
Yeah, that's another thing we should have mentioned, that doing this class is always hugely beneficial to us, and the interaction with all of you is really amazing for us. So thank you so much.
Yeah.
Oh, likewise.